Okay, so you always talk about unsexy businesses. That seems to be like your hook.
Yep.
What's an unsexy business?
Well, I think about it like private equity, if you're an investor. That basically means we take businesses that are not in the public markets, not stock-based businesses, and we invest in them. So for instance, I have 25 businesses or something like that. One of them's a landscaping business. One of them is a business that's only focused on, for instance, doing retail distribution. Like they're the trucks that actually put stuff in the Walmarts, let's say. And so these are the everyday businesses that like most millionaires actually made their money on. The guy who lives next door to me, he made a bunch of his money, and he has a lot of it selling sprinkler systems. So you don't have to be a rocket scientist or want to create the next Tesla, in my opinion, to make a bunch of money.
So it's kind of funny because I know you through the internet world, but you're not really invested in too many. Now you have some internet businesses, but most of your actual income comes from all these like offline things. What's the split in the world if you know of like offline stuff versus online? Is that a thing?
Yeah, for sure. Like in the actual world?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's hard because, I mean, you could say this. You could say that 47% of all people are employed by small businesses. Small businesses are predominantly mom and pop based shops, and most of them do not have a social media presence or an online presence that's even significant. In fact, most small businesses, I think only about 35% of them have a Yelp page and should. So I would say that most of the people in the US are employed by small businesses, and there are definitely more small businesses than there are huge tech companies. It's just we don't read about them in the Wall Street Journal.
They're unsexy, as you say.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay, so let's talk about, so you've parlayed this somehow into the internet, right? So you're like offline, but online.
Yeah.
How did that start? Why did you start doing that? Were you always doing that or?
No. Actually, I mean, we met years and years ago, right?
Yeah.
When I just randomly decided to come to SumoCon from our mutual friend Noah's. Well, I wasn't even friends with Noah at the time. I didn't even know him.
I'm not friends with him either.
Smart. But anyway, at that time I hadn't done anything online, and most people in finance don't, because there's all these rules about conflicts of interest and being on the internet, and you have all these regulations that can get you in trouble. So for most of my career, I did nothing on the internet. No blogs, no speaking about anything. But then, quite honestly, I started to get bored. And I remember one CEO of the company I was at the time said, like, we get rich quietly here. That's what we do. We get rich quietly. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound like that much fun. Like, I'd rather get rich with a bunch of buds. That sounds like a good time. And like, if I could figure out how to do it, maybe I could talk to other people about doing it. And so I started off as a journalist. So I kind of couldn't help but write something. And then I realized it's really easy now because I'm not tech savvy, where I can write on the internet with things like Substack or WordPress or whatever without having to know how to code.
And where did you start?
I started in January of 2020 and created something called Contrarian Thinking.
Wait, that was your first foray online?
Yeah.
Did you not have social media before that?
I had social media, that's true. Yeah, I had Instagram. I didn't really have a Twitter account, but mostly just Instagram, I guess, and posted stuff that I thought was interesting. But I didn't have any other blogs. And back in the day, I did like 3 podcast episodes, probably like most people do in podcasts. And then I got in trouble with my company, and so they told me to shut it down. It was actually funny. There was like me, my mom, not even my dad listened to me. And the firm I was at, multi-billion-dollar business, I was doing pretty well there, relatively high, ran Latin America, and they were like, you got to shut it down because you might move the market. And I'm like, there's 3 people listening. Nobody's moving any market. But yeah, my first real foray was January 2020. And then prior to that, I messed around with social media and stuff, and I invested in a couple internet businesses, but never really built one myself.
So you were working at a company as an investor. You weren't privately doing this.
So my last deal, I was a partner at a private equity firm in cannabis. So I was part of the management company. And then before that, I ran an international investment business. And that was in Latin America.
And then what about all the laundromats and all that kind of, like the unsexy business? When did that start?
That started, well, I've been doing that for probably 10 years, but quietly, not telling anybody about it. I mean, I didn't think anybody would care if I bought a laundromat or not. Like that to me seems like super not appealing. But I started buying them and I did angel investing first, lost a bunch of money, didn't know what I was doing, had no unfair access. And then I was like, wait a second, I kind of like to keep the money I make. So like maybe I could invest in stuff that isn't so hard to get into the right deals and I don't have to be as sophisticated. And so I said, well, hey, like I bought a laundromat, and then I bought part of a car wash company, and then I bought into a plumbing company. And I was like, oh, it's like a P&L. I can read it. I can understand what the business is doing, and I could invest based on now and not dreams. And maybe that'll turn into something.
Where did that come from though? Like where did you get this idea? So, I mean, I have some friends that like bought storage units and stuff, and they had like uncles in the industry. So they're like, oh, I get it. Did you have some sort of family connection, or did you have some sort of like model that you like? Where did that come from? It's so strange.
Yeah, two parts. I was in private equity, and private equity basically does this for a living. So like, if you look at the Forbes 100 list, like the most concentration of billionaires are private equity managers. So I basically made millions and millions of dollars for other people in private equity. And then I was like, I don't really like these people I'm making all this money for. Like, couldn't I do it myself? And then I was like, no way, not smart enough. And then I had my uncle Eb, to your point. He owned a plumbing company called Eb Holmes Plumbing. And he turned like 75, 76 years old, and he got a cancer scare. And he kind of got worried, that he should start rolling down this business, his plumbing business. And at the time, I didn't know all this, but the business was doing like $3 million in profits, right? And small businesses you buy for 2 to 3x their profits. So if he made $3 million, we could buy that business theoretically for $6 to $9 million. And what did he do with the business instead of sell it? He shut it down because, he was 75 years old. He didn't even know you could sell a business. He was tired. He had cancer. And that's what happens to most small businesses. They actually just get wound down. And so when he told me this, I was like, what do you do? Like, you definitely could have sold this business. And I thought, oh, I could probably do that. I could help out an Uncle Eb somewhere.
Huh. Interesting. I'm always fascinated by some of these small businesses because you never hear anything about them. And so you're just like, oh, 3 million profit a year. And you're like, wait, like that's higher than a lot of tech companies. They just go, they're valued at 100 million, but they might actually only make like $1 million. And of that profit, what are you talking about? It's kind of hilarious.
Totally agree.
And so you're saying most people in the world actually get rich off of these types of businesses?
Oh yeah, I mean, look at Austin. Sure, Austin is a weird tech center for sure. But if you were to actually look at the people who, let's say, are the largest donors to politicians, which is always a fun way to figure out who has money, and see how those people made their money in order to donate, you would find very normal businesses. You would find, I was talking to a guy yesterday, he's very wealthy here. He's one of the main providers of like shutters, like here, and cabinetry. One of the guys who came to my conference, I mean, he just bought a business that does $5 million in profit in garage cabinets. And so they're everywhere because what do we need to use every single day are these hard assets. I mean, services that you wouldn't think anything of are the ones that we spend way more money on than we do on Slack each month, actually.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Actually, when I first started trying to meet rich people when I was in college, I used to crash parties. And I'd be like, what do you do? What do you do? And one of this guy that was throwing this huge, very, very fancy fundraiser, he ran a carpet store. And I was like, wait, a carpet store? And he's like, yeah, we were like the largest carpet, whatever, in like Austin or this area. And he was just a really rich dude from a carpet store. And it just blew my mind because I only thought like you could make money in tech.
Yeah, I think it's everywhere. In fact, I think most people underestimate how much money is made in the boring. I mean, and quite honestly, I think the other interesting thing is it's just a good balance, Like nobody thinks about the landscaping company or the yard maintenance company, but you pay the guy $100 every single month. Think about how many tech companies do you pay $100 to every month?
For years, too.
For your entire...
For the exact same product.
Exactly. And then...
Didn't even change.
Exactly. And then imagine that you compare that to Netflix. Like, what are you paying Netflix? Like $4.99 a month or $7.99 a month? I might rather actually have the landscaping company on a micro scale, right? Maybe because I'm not big enough, smart enough or whatever to build Netflix.
So do you come in and apply marketing to these things? Is that what you do, or you just buy it and don't do anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like a common misperception that like, first of all, that I know how to run a fucking landscaping business better than a landscaper. So I try to not come in with a ton of ego, right? But I actually think what you want to do is you just want to find good businesses and you want to buy them at reasonable prices and make sure they're going to continue to run exactly as they are. Where most people get into trouble is they come in, they try to buy a business and they're like, we're going to turn this into the subscription service for lamps. And you're like, oh man, that's where you start to go sideways. So you really want to buy the boring business, keep it boring, and then you could tweak the dials on it a little bit. But my analogy is like, you just redid a bunch of your house. When do you ever redo a house or flip a house and it's under budget and done faster than you think it's going to be done? Never in the history of ever. So you don't go buy a crappy business and expect yourself to be able to flip it all the way first time. You want to buy almost like a bond, you're like, I want this. Does anybody buy bonds anymore? But like,
oh my
back
it's
in
crypto now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that doesn't even count. But theoretically, back in the day, you're like, this piece of paper will pay me 10% every month, no matter what. That's sort of the guarantee of a bond. And that's how I think about buying businesses. This boring business will pay me $2,000 a month for sure. And yeah, maybe more, but like, let's focus on the $2,000 for right now.
Huh. Interesting. It sounds kind of interesting. Okay. So here's why it sounds interesting to me. We run a copywriting company and we help people like redo their advertising. So one of my favorite is when we redo local advertising. And here's the reason. It's so easy. It's so stupid easy. So for an internet business that wants to be like cold email templates and get that number one to Google, I'm like, okay, that's a lofty expectation. This is a long-term play. And then you could be dethroned at any given moment. However, for the offline businesses we do, it's usually like update your Google profile. Update your Yelp profile, add 3 pictures, add a phone number. It's like shit you could do in 5 minutes on your phone. And literally that alone will make you stand out. And I remember helping a friend back. This is where I first learned this. A friend opened a couple automotive shops with a guy. And he was in charge of like doing the marketing. And you know what the marketing that we did was? We posted on Craigslist a couple times and we found an ad that worked. It was just like, if you have a Mercedes or BMW, come here. That's it. That was the ad. And then we also got a lot of asked for reviews from the customers. And and the bar was so incredibly, stupidly low. I could not believe it. I didn't realize it was that low. And so like, Bob's Auto Mechanic Shop is not really like trying to, go all full in on Google listings or anything like that. No. So if you're the one that does that, you're going to have like 14 reviews, which is like way more than everyone else around in the area.
That's exactly
and that's what it was. And it just grew so far beyond. And then he opened up other local stores and we did the same type of marketing and it worked incredibly well. And that's why I'm kind of excited about like the local stuff. I'm like, the bar is so low for marketing. There's none.
I mean, if I was you, we talked to a lot of people about how to structure deals. I'm like a deal structuring junkie. I think it's so fun. It's like magic. And so like our other friend, Nick Ray, like called me and I'm like, oh no, you should never do this deal this way. This is the way you should do it. And he's like, oh God, I didn't know I could structure it this way. This is what you learn in private equity. It's like the first time you learn a language and you're like, oh, there's such a nuance between one word and this other word. And like, this actually is ridiculous and this sounds much better. And it's the same thing with deal structuring. So with like you and your skill set here, if I was structuring deals for you, I would say you should never, ever have boring businesses as clients. Nope. Why not? Because you should only have boring businesses as partners where you use your ability to increase their revenue and clients in the business to get you a percentage of the equity and profit share in a business. If you're going to do a tech startup deal, you'll never get a profit share. It's like, here you go. If we sell, maybe you'll make some money, but maybe you'll be super diluted. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But in this business, you could go to a landscaper and say like, right now, man, you're making like $300,000 a year right now, right? Yep. Okay. You have no marketing. Nothing's happening here. I think I could increase that. If I increase your marketing over $300,000, I want 10% or 25% or whatever of every dollar over 300K that I attribute to your business. And, oh, by the way, I want that in perpetuity for equity in your business, but you're happy about it because you've only been doing 300K for the past 2 or 3 years anyway. You're never going to get to the next level without me. So now it's like, I don't know, Bob and Neville's landscaping company eventually because you're able to bring in this marketing arm of it.
Interesting. Is this like a real deal that happens?
No, for sure. It's called a revenue share or profit share model.
Wow.
Yeah.
No joke. This actually sounds kind of cool.
It's I've done it multiple times. I have a podcast production business that basically we help a bunch of different clients run their podcasts, sort of like you have someone here helping you with yours. Mm-hmm. But this group takes the back end, does all the video editing, uploads it, whatever. And the way I got into this deal was the guy who runs it, his name's Jonathan. I was like, you're doing X. I think I could introduce you to a ton more people. If you do Y, I want to own 40% of the company.
Is this RCRD?
No, they're called SFP.
Oh, never mind. I tried to invest in one. They didn't let me. So I could build one here.
Yeah, you could build the same thing. And so basically now I get a check in the mail every single month because I increased his revenue by X. And like we have strategic calls, but I don't do anything in the business.
Huh. Interesting.
So it's totally doable.
I really like this. How do you find these businesses to buy? Is there like a site?
Yeah, there is. So there's there's Flippa is the one that's most often for digital products and online businesses. There's Biz Buy Sell, which is sort of like MLS, the real estate site, but for small businesses. There's
Empire Flippers.
Yeah, Empire Flippers, I guess, was a little bit more like Zillow or Redfin, if more refined than MLS, and so a little bit more expensive. So there's a whole list of them. But quite honestly, the magic is in doing your own deals with the people that are already in your network, especially for your first couple of deals, because you're not really going to know what deal is better than another on a listing site. You have a lot of competition. But the real magic would be like, oh, talk to my landscaper actually and tell him I want to do the copywriting for him. And so I want to structure this deal this way. Or like you have an older contractor or something who's coming to, do stuff for your house. And he's talking about how you want to retire. And you're like, ooh, you want to retire? Interesting. What's your retirement plan? Like, are you going to sell the company? And if Neville was super handy, then maybe you buy that company from him, and it all happens nowhere online.
I might actually do this. I'm going to ask you
tell me,
about how to.
you.
Yeah, this is one. I think it'd be a fun experiment. Two, it doesn't sound like it's crazy expensive.
No, well, first of all, I mean, I do many deals for free. Now I probably always give a little bit of cash just because I want people to know that I have some skin in the game.
Yeah.
But I did many of my first deals for $0 because it was just you can increase your assets in a business, or you can get free money or free equity in a business for really 3 reasons. 1, you increase the revenue of the business overall. 2, you decrease the expenses of a business overall. Or 3, you get in and structure it or operationalize a business. Like, say Neville's copywriting course was a nightmare to run and Neville was about to end it. And I came in and I'm like, I'm a really amazing COO. I can streamline everything for you, but you're going to give me some equity. And same thing if you could grow the business, and same thing if you were like, God, our costs are out of control. I don't know where to cut them. I'm like, I could do that for you, and I'm going to take something on the back end for it.
Huh. I love this.
Yeah, they're called value-added deals.
Interesting. Because I've only usually done just tech stuff.
Yeah, those are the hardest to do, in my opinion, because 1, they're the most competitive. I mean, think about it this way. In Silicon Valley today, one of my friends who's a partner at Sequoia told me something. He's like, I do not need any more money. Money has become a commodity to me. So much so, in fact, that we only take checks from nonprofits. I'm like, that's the most ass backwards thing I've ever heard. Like, you guys are trying to make money, but anyway. And that's the world around us in tech, is everybody's like trying to allocate all their money to tech, and it's become this competitive thing to even get into deals. Well, I always want to go where there's what I call a difference between narrative and numbers. So whereas like the story, AKA this is boring, different than the numbers, which is like, I don't think zeros are boring. I like zeros. And so I want to find the arbitrage opportunity between the two. And that's private boring businesses. And then it's slightly harder. Like, you don't have to know how to structure a deal or look at a business to give money in AngelList today, right? It's become democratized and commoditized, meaning anybody could do it, and there's a set playbook everybody follows. In private business land, there's no playbook. Whenever there's no playbook, you can make more money.